Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Joining me today is Lianne. Lianne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you. So where in the States are you?
I'm located in New Jersey. I've been here all my life. I went to a couple different states, but Jersey has my heart.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. I'm in Canada. I've never been there. It
Oh,
sounds
okay.
nice.
My
Yeah, it
daughter
sounds
actually
really
went to
nice.
Canada a couple months ago and she fell in love with it. So I got to make my
Yeah,
way.
yeah, it's beautiful,
Yeah.
especially the Rockies. It's breathtaking. So
Mm,
hopefully when you come, you do enjoy it.
yes, absolutely.
So Lianne, to start, can you tell us more about you and what you do?
Yes. So, hi, everyone. My name is Lianne. I'm the creator and host of the Watch Us Thrive podcast. I'm also a personal development coach. I like to help women heal from leaving toxic and abusive relationships. That's something that I have firsthand experience with. I am a domestic violence survivor. And in going through what I went through and that trauma and that pain, I really wanted to turn it around and really turn it into my purpose, which is why I started my brand, my podcast, to initially share my story of what I went through, different life experiences, also bring other people on to share their own testimonies of really turning their pain into power. And I'm just trying to change the world one conversation at a time.
That's awesome. Thank you for being a voice and for giving women the platform and the voice to share what it's like, because it can be a silent killer. And I find that there is a lot of shame that is tied to this specific topic, as if it's anyone's fault or their choice for that to happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. There's so much victim blaming when it comes to being in these toxic relationships. There's so much questioning the person who's dealing with the abuse. Why didn't you just leave? Just get up and walk away. And it's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. It's just saying no more. There's so much emotion that comes with it, all of the things that I dealt with, the shame, the embarrassment, the anger, the sadness, the fear. Fear is a huge thing that stops a lot of us from leaving because when you do decide to leave, that's when the abuse can get even more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it can even manifest into potentially dying from the abuse, so it's really not just that cut and dry, but I truly believe that I survived what I went through for a reason. And I
Mhm.
want to use my voice to let others know that you don't need to continue dealing with this. You can find the power within you to say, no more. I am going to do something to change this cycle that I feel stuck in because I literally felt stuck in it.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, you're right. People don't have to deal with it. As you mentioned, obviously, make sure you get out safely, right?
Yes.
Because the safety of women and kids and people involved in those situations are so important. And what would you say to women? They want to get out, they feel trapped, and they don't know where to start or what to do.
Mm. For me, I spoke up and I told someone what was happening. It was the
Yeah.
night that my life was almost taken from me. My ex-boyfriend literally almost killed me. And when I escaped my apartment and I went to my best friend's house where he didn't know where she lived, that's the first
Mhm.
time that I spoke up and told someone. And that's when I was able to really start my own healing because I decided to use my voice and speak up. So that would be my first piece of advice for anyone who, if you're in it or if you just left and you don't know what to do, you need to lean on that support. And you might not even know that you have that support system until you do speak up and ask for help. But like we said before, there's so much shame, there's so much embarrassment, there's so much, oh my God, what are people going to say? They're going to judge me. Forget all of that and just worry about your well being and know that you don't need to take on this burden by yourself. When I
Mhm.
was in that situation, I felt so alone. I felt like no one could understand me, no one knew what I was going through. But when I started talking about it, I realized there's so many of us who are going through this, but we're scared to speak up because of that shame, because of that judgment, because of that fear. But you're really not going to know how powerful you can help someone just by speaking up and using your voice. And that ultimately is like you taking control back over yourself, right? When you're in these relationships, the person who's doing the abuse, they're all about the power, they're all about the control, they're all about making sure that you feel inferior to them. But you standing up and using your voice, that is the first step in you to really be able to take your power back over your life. So
Mhm.
use your voice and speak up, no matter how scared you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are really good advice, and thank you for sharing them.
Yeah.
Um, I watched my mom, growing up as a child, being beat and abused by my dad.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. What does that turn me into? I really have no respect for men.
Right.
And some women can be abusive in relationships too.
Yep.
Uh, it's not just men, to be fair.
Yep.
Um, I was a child, and there are other kids who have been in my situation who are still in those situations. What are some signs that parents need to look for, even community workers or school or court officers, whoever's involved when it comes to those kind of issues? Uh,
Mm,
because it's easy to not see kids in those situations. We
right.
see them, but we don't really see them. We don't really hear them. How
Yeah.
can we hear kids that are entangled in those situations?
Yeah. I think about for me and my daughter, she's gonna turn 14 this year, so she's a little bit older. But for me and her, we have such an open relationship where we don't hide anything. And that's not what I had growing up with my parents. I love them to death. They were great. I didn't grow up in an abusive home, but I didn't grow up in a home where I felt I could be my true authentic self and really speak up and use my voice. So what I'm trying to do differently in this generation now with me and my daughter, I want to have such an open line of communication that
Mm-hmm.
she feels safe to come to me. So I think it's important for us to ask those questions, ask those uncomfortable questions that us growing up, we weren't able to ask, but we can break the cycle and be like, I know something's wrong with you. Like I can tell when there's something going on with my daughter, I know. And I'm going to question it until she feels like, okay, I'm going to talk to you about it because you actually care. You're actually putting in the effort to see what's really going on instead of just being like, oh, forget about it. She's just hormonal and she'll get over it. No, like I really want to know what's going on. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important for us to, like they say, like read the room. If you feel like the energy is off, if they're lashing out and acting out, that's really like a cry for help. But
Yeah.
kids don't really know how to speak in the emotional challenges that we do as adults. So it's kind of like if they're acting up, there's definitely something deeper going on. That's when you
Yeah.
need to start questioning it. And again, like I said before, don't feel like you got to do it alone. If you need to seek out professional help, go into therapy. My daughter was in therapy for what I went through. She wasn't around when the physical abuse happened, but she knew what happened afterwards. And
Wow.
that really set her off emotionally to the point that she had to go get professional help to talk about it. So I think it's really important to focus on the resources that are out there. But like I said before, no one's going to know what's going on unless you talk about it, unless you question it. And it's your responsibility as a parent to be like, I got to figure out what's going on because I'm not going to let this continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. And just to continue to listen to our kids.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to find a proper way to express my next thought. I'm not gonna give any names, but I knew someone who was in that type of relationship. There would be bruise on her, and she'd say she fell.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't that, and there were kids in the house, and all the time she had just bruises in different places. And I tried to help. It's like she didn't really need it. She didn't. She does, but she pushed me away.
Hmm.
How can people help friends or people in those situations
Yeah.
when they're very reluctant? They don't want the help. It's a shame-based reaction, I would say too.
Yes, that's the key word, and I'm glad you said it. The person going through this abuse, there's such shame. They probably don't even want to admit that this is the reality of what they're going through. I didn't want to really think, oh my God, this is my life. Like, what are people going to say? My mom's going to say, I told you so, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's not the type of
Mm-hmm.
support or judgment that you really want from someone that you care about. So, my piece of advice, just be there. Like, just let that person know, I know you're not in the right mindset right now to walk away, but please know that I'm here for you no matter what. And I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you if you leave him or her and go back, because that's something
Yeah.
that a lot of people go through. The average number of times it takes a victim to permanently leave is 7. You know, some is
Mhm.
more, some is less. My number was 3. It took 3
Mhm.
separate instances for me to really say enough is enough. But, you know, we need that support. We need that love that we're not getting from that person. And we just need to know that, like, I'm going to be there for you no matter what. So whenever you fall down, I'm here. I got you. And I'm not going to come at you, you know, making you feel dumb or make any of these negative feelings. Just know that I'm here. And you know, you can't change anyone who's not ready to change. That's also another thing that I realize, even if it's the perpetrator or if it's the person going through the abuse, they have to get to the point that they are sick and tired of feeling that way. And
Mhm.
then they'll be able to make the change. And then they're going to know, okay, at least I got one person in my corner who really got my back.
Yeah.
So just be as supportive as you can and just constantly let them know I'm here for you and I'll be here for you every step of the way, no matter what.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And once women or men or and kids, once they remove themselves and they safely get out, how can they begin to heal those really, really deep wounds?
Mm. I'm a huge component for therapy. Therapy was the first thing that I started in my own healing journey. I first started going to group therapy. And in the beginning, honestly, that was a little triggering for me, just hearing other people's stories because mine was still so fresh. So then I decided to see a therapist on my own, and one-on-one therapy. That really changed my life, especially because it was with a man. And, you know, everything that happened to me was with a man who I lost my trust in men, but then I'm able to work with this young Latino, and he really made me feel safe and seen. So I think the first step, I mean, it's going to sound like a broken record, but really just speaking up and asking for that help, it's so necessary. And for you to know that, like, you don't need to do this alone, and you shouldn't feel like you need to do this alone. And just know that this healing, it's not something that's going to, you know, you only go to therapy a couple of times and then you're going to be cured. No, that's not reality. Something that you went through was very traumatic, and it's going to be ups and downs, ebbs and flows. There's going to be good days, there's going to be horrible days. I was also diagnosed with PTSD, so I do suffer with that, flashbacks and triggers.
Yeah.
Know that that's all a part of the process. It's all normal, and the way that you're feeling is perfectly good for you because it's your journey, no one else's. So,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I also have PTSD, and it's very real. Let's talk about accountability. How
mm.
can we take accountability for our actions and how we impact people?
Mm. I talk about accountability all the time on my podcast. I was actually my word of the year for 2022, accountability. And, you know, for me and my healing, not that what happened to me I deserved it, but there was some sort of accountability that I had to take in what I thought was acceptable and what I thought was okay. Like I stayed even though he put his hands on me. I stayed even though he cheated on me multiple times. I stayed even though he cursed me out and called me every name of the book. And I thought that was okay, right?
Mhm.
Because that's really what I thought love was supposed to be, because I was so used to toxicity and chaos in all of my romantic relationships. So I
Mhm.
really had to take some responsibility over myself and be like, you know, there was a little something about me that I really had to work on and fix and figure out, why did I think that was okay? Why was that acceptable? Why did I feel like this was the only type of love that I was allowed to have? Like there was some stuff that I had to work on and really realize that Maybe I was a little bit toxic too. I absolutely was. I have no problem admitting that. I was definitely toxic too. And I was in a very low place in my life. So, of course, I was going to attract someone who was also in a very low place of his life. Right. So, again, it's not to say that, I deserved what happened to me, but there were some wounds that I was ignoring for so long that really needed some help and some healing. And I had to look in the mirror and say, okay, enough is enough. Now it's time to really start working on me for the first time in my life.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, you mentioned something important, ignoring the wounds, because there are often lots of red flags that are ignored,
yeah,
and it's not to blame you or anyone who's in those situations. It's just a gentle nudge to say, hey, how long, how many years, how much damage are you willing to sustain to put up with that person, to be in that
absolutely.
relationship? And
Absolutely.
I know when it comes to financial stuff, it's hard because maybe the partner who's abusive is providing, and if that person leaves, they don't have anywhere to go. But I know
Exactly.
there are lots of women's shelters where I am for that kind of situation. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
No, I can't believe how much financial abuse plays a role in these relationships. I came across a statistic that blew my mind. 99% of DV victims experience financial abuse. And I'm like, that's something I never even heard of before I really started digging deep in what is domestic violence. And of course, people are going to stay. Of course, it's hard for them to leave because if someone has financial control over you, what the hell are you supposed to do? Especially if you're in a state where there's no one around you, no friends, no family. I'm grateful that I have such a strong support system. I didn't even know I had, but a lot of people don't have that. So, it's better to know the devil that you know than to know the devil that you don't know. So why don't I just stay and deal with this abuse because at least I know what to expect. But if you leave, you have no money, you have no home, especially if you have kids. It's just there's so many different layers. It's not just that simple of packing up your bags and going because then what's next? That's why so many people end up going back to the abuser because it's so much harder for them once they do leave. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to
Mm-hmm.
lean on those resources, to speak up, to ask for help, to say, I'm not okay, and that is okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And so some of us, we've been leaning on certain people for so long.
Yeah.
We don't know how to stand on our own
Yeah.
or by ourselves. It feels weird. It feels strange. It feels like weakness or whatever label they put on it. How can we build confidence in general as women? But
Mm.
the women and men that are leaving or have faced this situation, it truly destroys a person.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I felt completely broken once I left and once I was back home. I had lost my job, I lost my car, lost my apartment, my unemployment ran out. I'm 30 something years old, moving back in with my family. Like, I literally felt like the biggest failure. And I want people to know that it is okay to feel that way. It is okay to feel like a victim. It is okay to feel sorry for yourself. It's okay to feel angry and all those things. I used to be the type of girl who would just suppress and pretend like I wasn't feeling those feelings because they were very uncomfortable. But
Mhm,
what I've realized in doing a lot of healing and, working with professionals, life coaches, therapists, all of these things, like you cannot run away from those feelings because they are going to follow you wherever you go until you finally decide, I'm going to rip this band-aid off and I'm going to let it bleed. I'm going to let it, whatever feeling that needs to come out. If I need to yell, if I need to scream, if I need to curse, if I need to do whatever, I'm going to allow myself to surrender in that moment. But then we're going to figure out, okay, what's the next step now that I've gotten all of these feelings out? What can I do in order to build my confidence back up? For
mhm,
me, I was a habitual person who would always find someone else to distract me. That was the thing. I could not stand the fact of being alone. Being alone was like one of my biggest fears. Now, 2.5 years later, after I've left, I'm still single. I'm still celibate. I'm focusing on myself so much. I'm getting to know Lianne by herself because I never knew who I was as my own person. And I had to be uncomfortable with that feeling. I had to be uncomfortable with, I really don't have anyone next to me romantically. I don't have anyone that I can call, and that's okay. Like, I really want to get to know who I am. What do I like? What I don't like? Take myself out on a date for once, buy
Mhm.
myself flowers. I can do that for myself. And I know that I need to set the standard for when I do decide to go back out there.
Mhm.
If you can't reach what I have, what the kind of love I have for myself, then I'm not even going to entertain you. And you're really not going to really get to know yourself on that level until you take that time to really get to know who you are as your whole person on your own. And it's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. It's scary, right? Especially us as women, like we're emotional. We like to be in love. I love being in love, but I was attracting the wrong kind of love. And now I have such a deep relationship with myself that I'm not going to settle for less ever again. And I had to go through what I went through in order for me to become who I am today.
Wow, that's some pretty deep stuff. Wow.
Takes a lot of work.
I can tell that
Yeah.
you've put the work in and you're still doing it.
Yes.
Hey, I'm single too. And men, most of them at least, they're like flies. They just buzz in my ears.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Oh, mine. I truly hope anyone who's listening or watching this, anyone who's in your circle, they do feel the strength that you have and
Thank
to
you.
know that they're not alone in what they're doing.
Yes.
Yes, it's scary to be alone. I love being by myself.
Mm. I love my own company, man. I'm a good time.
Me too. Me too. Like
Yes.
I don't get bored. I'm always doing something. No one's
Yes.
in my way.
And I
It's
can do
really
whatever I want to
cool
do
that.
when I want to do it.
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And for women who's not used to being alone, how can they start to be like us?
Mm.
Enjoy being alone and don't not needing men or people to,
Yes.
you know?
It's a journey that it's one step at a time. I wasn't like this. If you would have asked me that 2 years ago, it would have been a completely different answer. But I was just so determined to no longer feel how I felt before. I was so tired of feeling drained and sad and angry. Like, I was so tired of feeling all of that. I knew I was just like, I need to do something different. Clearly, me going from one relationship to the next and not really working on me, that's not serving me. So I got to do something different. If that means deleting the apps, if that means changing your phone number, if that means relocating to a new state and starting over new,
Yeah,
do whatever it is that you have to do. But if you want a different result, you gotta move a little bit differently. What the
yeah,
definition of insanity, you do the same thing over and over and you're expecting this different result.
yeah,
I was doing the same thing over and over, wishing for a different result, but I'm just finding the same toxic man in a different body. And I
yeah,
realized I'm like, yo, what am I doing right now? Like, something needs to give. And I mean, it really took for me to lose my life almost to be like, okay, doing a hard reset. We're starting from zero. We're deleting the apps. We're moving back home in with our family and we're going to start working on me. So you got to do the complete opposite of what you've been doing and
yeah,
take it one day at a time.
yeah,
There's moments that I'm sad. There's moments that I'm ecstatic. There's moments that I feel like the baddest woman in the world. And there's other days that I'm like, oh, but that's okay. It's your journey. You do it on your timeline just because, oh, you're in your 30s and you're still single. There must be something wrong with you.
yeah,
No, fuck
yeah.
that. And I don't know if I can curse, but fuck that.
Oh, oh, no, I know, I know,
you
I know.
know?
That's how I used to feel.
Yes.
That's society. That's how they put it. I
And
don't
then
have
if you have
brain, and
kids, it's like, oh, you got kids.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, what's wrong with just being me? Why do I
Exactly.
have to do what society's doing to feel worthy of being loved or to
Yeah.
love myself?
Yep.
I struggled with all of those for so long, like
Yeah.
self-esteem, self-blame, shame, hate, all of it. And was it solely due to my own doings? Absolutely not. But I allowed other people, I give people power.
Mm,
We have power. When we give it away, we keep giving it away, we lose ourselves.
exactly.
We can take our powers back
You
and
absolutely can. There's
create.
two women right here who are a testimony to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know there's probably more women, they're in the silence zone, meaning that they're still watching, they're listening,
Yeah.
but they're debating what to do. They don't know what to do, and they get stuck. Yeah. What are some resources or tools and things you think could, women could have to help
Yeah.
them? Mhm.
Well, one, my podcast, shameless plug.
Yes. Yes. I'm gonna check it out, by the way.
Yes, thank you so much. It's definitely a place where you're gonna feel seen and heard and understood. I can't recommend it enough. Like just the power of community, the amount of people that I've been able to connect with and really just lean on for that support. I think that's so important for any survivor of, you're going through these types of relationships. You got to just lean on the people that are in your corner because you really don't know until you speak up and ask for help, right? And like I said before, going to therapy, that's huge for me. I can't advocate for it enough that just being in a space that's safe and a judgment-free zone
Mhm,
completely changed my life working with life coaches. I'm a personal development coach too, so if you're ever looking for support for someone who's been through it, please don't hesitate to hit me up. I just want to help as many people as I can because I've been there, right? And like we said before, going to shelters, going to, domestic violence advocacy groups, like there's so many resources out there in your town. You just got to get to the point that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do this for me and I'm going to reach out and ask for the help because I know it's out there.
And to not wait until it's too late.
Yep. Because we
To
see that
not
too
wait.
much
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All the time it's in the
all the
news.
time.
This
Yep.
partner murdered the kids and wife and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
It's to not wait. It doesn't have to be late to get the help.
Nope. And you
Hmm
don't need to continue living this life of, you know, I know it can feel like there's no way out, like there's just this dark cloud over you, but I promise you, there's such a beautiful life after leaving. It's not easy. I don't want to paint this picture that it's rainbows and butterflies and, once she left, she was like the greatest person ever. No, that's not reality, but it can be your reality if you're committed to putting in the work and making it happen for yourself and saying, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to continue taking this type of abuse anymore. I love myself enough to know that I deserve more and I'm worth more than what I'm getting in this relationship.
Yeah, I love that. My logo on my podcast is Healing Together.
Mm,
And I intentionally put a small T because we can feel small, but we can still come together and heal. And I
yes.
also use water on the logo because water can wash, it can drown, it can heal, it can save, just to come together. And
Mm,
I love talking to a fellow podcaster like yourself. You know what it's like, you know what's up
yes.
with the mission and core values that we have, just to spread love and help people.
Yes. I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share before we wrap up this amazing episode?
I think the only thing that I would say, if this resonated with anyone listening or watching and you're in it right now, don't ignore that feeling. One thing that I did when I was in that relationship is I ignored that anxious feeling, that uncomfortable feeling. Like I knew my intuition was telling me something, my body was telling me something. But again, I chose to ignore it. And then it got to the point where it spiraled out of control and I almost died. So that would be my final piece of advice. You know what you're feeling. They're going to make you feel like you're crazy. They're going to make you feel like it's your fault, like it's your doing, like you're the reason why everything is happening. That's not the case. I need you to like really pay attention to that feeling and just know that like it's happening for a reason. That feeling keeps coming up for a reason. It's time for you to start listening to it. Because when I decided to listen to that feeling on that night when he almost killed me, that's when I was able to escape my abuser. That's when I was able to start healing. When I finally listened to that feeling that said, Lianne, if you don't get out right now, you're not going to make it. So listen to that feeling and ask for help.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. Well,
Yeah.
Lianne, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It
Thank
was
you.
great connecting with you. You're welcome.